defense. Gotta play defense. Aaron, you're over there. Aaron, over there. Defense. Don't let him dribble. Get your hands out. That's it now, buddy. Hands up. That's it now, buddy. Good rebound.
Take very close attention. Now, I've got some pretty high score here. Okay, let her rip. Press the button. Here we go. Ooh, close.
Muscle power, lots in every play.
Got 8 there. I mean 7. Here we go. He's balling. Yeah, spare. That's good job, Pa. Now here comes Pa. He balls. He's coming down. He lets it go. And it's a strike! Yay! Woo! Clap your hands! Yay! Ooh.
I thought you were dead. I don't get this. Good evening. My name is Dr. Michael Brown. I'm Michael Berkey, and I'm standing in the parking lot of the backyard, And I just got done with my co-op. And this is how it sounds. Now what do I do? Now I'm halfway through. I gotta do the rest.
Hairy hair, just not as stocky looking as a beagle would be.
So she's from two breeds. She's part beagle and part terrier.
Right, she's a mixed breed. Or we also call a mixed breed a hybrid, which means that she's half of one breed and half of another breed. And she's got characteristics from both parents.
So she's got the head of a terrier, the body of a beagle, and the legs of a terrier.
Right,
She's a mutt.
right. She's a mutt, which is good. That means that a lot of times a hybrid, a dog that's a mutt or a hybrid, is a stronger dog because they're a mixture of two different breeds and they have the best characteristics of both breeds.
So it's better that a dog be from two different breeds than be purebred.
A lot of times, yes, it is. They make stronger dogs. Lucky's a mutt, and Lucky's lucky to be a mutt.
And that's why her name is Lucky.
Right.
My daddy was a donkey, my mama was a horse, and I'm what's called a hybrid. I'm a mule, of course. H-Y-B-R-I-D, 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 hybrid. That's another name for me.
My daddy's kin are cattle, mama's folks are buffalo, and all their kids are hybrids. That's why I'm a beefalo.
H-Y-B-R-I-D, 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 hybrid. That's another name for me. Two things that are different
Together make something new.
Brangus and Tangelos,
And Ligers are hybrids too.
my mama was a kumquat, my daddy was a lime, and I'm a little limquat, and I'm having a real good time. H-Y-B-R-I-D, 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 hybrid.
When two different things combine,
You get a hybrid every time.
Yeah, come on.
did you open the gate?
I'm in Buffalo, Texas, on the Plum Creek Ranch. That's Dr. Barbara McBride. She's a veterinarian.
Okay, you better come back now, because they're coming.
Okay.
I hope they don't break up and come this way. Like they are doing.
Just wave our arms.
Yeah, just wave and yell at them.
Okay.
Go on, girls! Ha!
Oh, good. They're going right out. That's good. Ha!
Great, great. Whew. Okay. See you guys later.
Bye-bye. How many cattle did we run out of there?
I was about 15 or 20 cows and one bull.
Okay, so the cow is the female and the bull is the male.
That's right.
Now, how many cattle do they have on the ranch altogether?
We have about 1,200 head here.
Whoa! 1,200, that's a lot of cattle.
Yeah, well, there's quite a bit of land here, too, for them.
How much is there?
We have over 4,000 acres out here.
Over 4,000 acres and you only have cattle?
Sure do, yeah.
Why don't you grow corn or something, or raise some other kind of animal?
Well, I guess we could, but this grass is best utilized by the cattle. They take this grass and convert it into meat and milk, which we can then use.
Now, how come I've seen cattle that look different than these? These are black. I've seen some with spots, some gray, you know, different colors. Why is that?
Well, there are different breeds of cattle.
Oh, just like there's different breeds of horses.
That's right. We have a breed here that you've probably never seen before. Let me show them to you.
Okay.
This particular breed of cattle is known as the Brahmin. They've been imported from the country India.
Now, they look a lot different than the cattle we just ran. Are they a different breed just because their appearance is different?
Well, there are other characteristics that you can't see. The physical characteristics are that they range from a white to a gray in color.
Right. And it has this thing under the chin. What's that?
That's known as the dewlap. Very characteristic of the Brahmin breed.
And long, floppy ears?
Right, they tend to fall down along the sides of their faces.
Well, these have horns, too. The other ones didn't have horns.
Right,
And they have a bigger hump,
The
too.
hump on the back,
Now, what are the characteristics that I can't see?
Well, the Brahmin breed is a hardy animal.
What does that mean, hardy?
Well, they tend to be heat tolerant. They are resistant to certain diseases because of their tolerance to certain insects. They tend to make better use of the land. They're good foraging animals.
Now, what are some of the traits that they have that aren't so great? Because every animal can't have perfect traits, right?
Right. Well, they don't tend to make very good mothers, and their milk quality is, the amount of milk they produce is rather low. They don't tend to be very fertile animals.
Now, is that what you're going to continue to do? Just breed the Brahmin to the Brahmin cow, the Brahmin bull to the Brahmin cow, and just keep this purebred of Brahmin?
No, here on this ranch, we take the Brahmin and breed it to another breed of cattle, another purebred.
Oh, what's the other purebred that you breed it with?
We breed them to the Angus,
Now, why do you do that?
so that we can come up with a superior breed of cattle, one that will make better use of this environment. When we breed two different purebreds together, we come up with an offspring which is known as a hybrid. And this hybrid has characteristics or traits taken from both parents.
But the traits are different.
Right, very different traits. They're a mixture of the traits from the parents.
Now, how do you know that the characteristics of the hybrid will be the ones that you want from the Brahmin and the ones that you want from the Angus?
Well, this has been determined through years and years of testing of mating the two breeds together.
Oh, so when you mate them together, you don't have another purebred, you have a hybrid.
A hybrid.
Is it possible for me to take a closer look at the other purebred that you use?
Sure, we have a couple of Angus over here. Why don't we go over and take a look at them?
Okay.
This is our Angus breed here.
Okay, so this is a purebred that you mate with the Brahmin.
Right.
Now, I really can see the physical difference between them and the Brahmin.
Right.
They have short ears. They're not long and floppy.
Right. They have a straight back.
Right. They look smaller.
Right, they are. They're lower to the ground.
And they're black.
And they're black. That black hair coat helps prevent sunburn.
So it's good in the summertime, and is it good in the wintertime, too?
Well, yeah, they tend to have a heavy hair coat. Also, the Angus cow has a high quality of meat. She's a beef breed of animal.
Now, what are the traits that aren't so advantageous?
Well, they're not as hardy as the Brahman breed. They don't withstand heat as well as the Brahman, and they're not resistant to certain diseases. And walking alongside of them is the Brangus calf, which is the hybrid. This is the offspring from the Brahman and the Angus.
So that's what you're doing when you're mixed breeding. You're doing it so you get a good beef cow.
Right. With our hybrid, the Brangus, we have an animal that has a good quality of meat. It's a hardy animal. It can resist sunburn, tolerate the heat in the summer, also tolerate the cold in the winter. And she's also resistant to certain diseases.
Oh, this is a Brangus, and I get to see it up close.
Right.
Now, I can see the traits that it picked up from the Brahmin. I mean, the ears aren't as floppy, but they are big.
Right,
And it's black, like the Angus.
like the Angus.
Oh, he's so cute. I mean, she's so cute.
Right. It also has the flesh under the neck.
Oh, right here.
Something like the Brahmin right here. Okay, she has a very nice black hair coat.
Feels really soft, too.
Yeah, it helps protect her from sunburn. Right.
And what about our teeth?
Okay. Cows have teeth on the bottom.
Oh, let me see.
They have no teeth on the top. This is called a dental pad.
Oh.
And it's used as a cutting plate. And her bottom teeth are flat and sharp, which help tear the grass. Her tongue is long, which will wrap around blades of grass.
Yeah, look how it curves like that.
And just tear it out of the ground. We'll take a look at her eyes.
Okay.
They look nice and shiny and clear. They're not red or yellow.
Now, how would you tell if anything was wrong with her eyes?
Well, you'd look at the color if it was pale or if it was too red or even yellow in color. But hers are nice and white and clear looking. Her ears.
They don't have any ticks?
No ticks, not much wax.
Really? They have wax for
Sure, they get wax in their ears.
Just like we do?
Another characteristic of cattle is their cloven hoof.
Now, why do you call it cloven?
Well, it's two of them, almost like having two fingers.
As opposed to the horse who has one.
Right.
And this is a nail?
Well, it's comparable to our nail. It's the hoof, and it's hard, like our nail. She seems to be in good flesh. She's not real thin. Would you like to listen to her heart?
Yeah, can I do that? Okay, you hold still. I'm gonna listen to your heart now. Does she have a name, or is her name 29?
29, yeah.
29.
Let's see if we can find her
cute.
heart. Okay. Right back here. Okay.
You got it? Okay.
Can you hear it?
Sounds just like a person.
That's right.
But is it the same rate as a
their
person?
heart rate ranges between 60 and 80 beats per minute.
Oh, wow. I can really hear it. That's neat.
Yeah. Right. She seems to be a healthy girl.
Oh, she's so pretty.
Yeah.
Barbara wants to show me something else, something really special.
Hey, we're lucky today. We got a mother cow here giving birth to a calf.
Is she getting ready to have it?
Yeah, in about a few minutes, she's going through the process, having a few contractions and what have you.
Now, is she just walking around to find a comfortable position?
More than likely, yeah.
How long do they stay pregnant?
About 9 months is the gestation period for a cow.
The same as a person?
And their calves are born alive with hair. And in a couple of hours, they're ready to stand and nurse their mother. She's having some contractions right now. It'll be some time.
Now, do they normally deliver standing up or laying down?
Some standing up, usually lying down, but some cows will stand up. Whichever is most comfortable for them.
Do they have to have help?
Well, if the calf is in the wrong position, she'll have help. Have someone come in and straighten the calf out.
And help pull it out? Have you ever done that?
Yeah, a couple of times.
Wow.
Oh.
But that usually doesn't happen.
What happens?
First you see the 2 front feet, and then about halfway up the arms, you'll see the muzzle. Her nose will come out.
Oh.
And you'll know she's in the right position.
Oh, so she comes out kind of like this.
Right.
Feet, head,
Right.
and the rest. Okay.
Yeah.
Her front feet.
Yeah,
Oh,
there's one right there, that little white part.
Yeah.
Yep.
No,
She's trying. She's definitely in labor. You see the 2 cloven hooves. You can see them right there.
Yeah.
Oh, I think she's about ready. I think it's coming. You see it?
I see it kind of. I see it. Oh, I see it now.
Yeah. She's giving some good contractions.
Oh, she's pushing.
She's pushing, yeah.
Oh, man.
It's all the way here. There it is.
Oh, look at that.
Why don't we move up close and see if we can get a better look, okay?
Should we tiptoe?
Yeah, let's be quiet.
Okay. Oh,
Looks like a healthy fella.
now this is a Brangus. Now, what did you tell me about? What did you just say?
You can notice the characteristic ears. You know, it has the Brahmin characteristic and part of the Angus. Oh, there he is. He's trying to get up.
Oh. Is she cleaning her up?
Right, that licking, she's cleaning off the afterbirth and also stimulating the calf to breathe.
Oh. It's so big. I didn't know it was going to be so big.
Well, yeah, they usually weigh maybe about between 70, 90 pounds at birth.
Wow, that's a lot. But then the cow's big, too, so.
Yeah, and notice her udder, how full it is. It's carrying the milk. The calf has to get that milk within at least the first 18 hours of birth.
Or?
It might just die. It absorbs a lot of antibodies from the mother to help protect it against certain diseases. If it doesn't get it within the first 18 hours of birth, then the calf could possibly die.
It's trying to stand up.
Yeah, it's got some wobbly legs, though. You have to give him some time to figure out exactly what to do with them.
Now, what's the pink thing hanging?
Well, that's what's called the umbilical cord.
Oh!
And that's what provides the nutrition between the mother and the calf.
Just like a human being.
Right, It usually breaks as the calf is coming through the birth canal.
Such a wonderful thing.
Farming is changing how everything grows. From breeding the livestock to planting in rows. Farming needs tractors, pickers, planters, balers, sprayers, and cultivators. Changing nature to get the food we eat. Farming means growing more of what we eat. 2 million pigs, 100 million baby chicks a week. In a year we grow 3 million pounds of tomatoes, 36 billion pounds of potatoes. Changing nature to get the food we eat. Plowing, pruning, seeding, weeding, cloning, grafting, breeding, feeding, fertilizing, pasteurizing, incubating, irrigating. Changing nature to get the food we eat. Farming, farming, to get the food, to get the food, to get the food we eat.
Okay, let's listen to her heart. Well, Lucky's lungs sound okay, but I do hear a heart murmur.
What's a murmur?
Well, a murmur is an abnormal heart sound. It could mean that the heart valves aren't closing properly or that there's some other abnormality in the heart.
Is that bad?
Well, not necessarily. Some dogs have heart murmurs all their lives, and it doesn't give them any problems. But just to make sure, we're going to do an EKG or an electrocardiogram and an X-ray. We're going to let Dr. Keating do that.
This is the X-ray of Lucky lying on her side. This is her bony backbone. This is her pelvis. This is her tail. This area here is her chest cavity, and these white lines are her ribs. This is her abdominal cavity. This white area here is her liver, and this white area here that contains a little bit of air is her stomach. These round areas here are her kidneys, and these white ribbons that you see here and here are her intestinal tract. This small white area here is her bladder. Now, coming back to the chest cavity, this is her heart shadow here, and this is the tube that carries the air down to the lungs. And these dark areas back in here and over in here are her lung fields that are filled with air. And you can see that they're the same color as the air outside of her body.
Well, what about her heart? Is her heart okay?
Her heart looks fine. What we're looking for on the X-ray is whether or not her heart has enlarged in any particular area. And it has not at all. It's a perfectly sized heart.
But what about the murmur?
Well, her murmur is what we call an innocent murmur, which means that she's probably not going to show any abnormal signs from the effects of the murmur at all, and she will probably outgrow it as she grows up. But what I'd like to do is an additional test called an electrocardiogram to confirm that her heart is normal. What I'm doing here is measuring the electrical impulse that's coming from her heart, that's traveling along the wires up to this machine that receives that electricity. And it tells me about her heart rate. Is it going too fast? Is it going too slow? Or is it beating at a normal rate? And she's beating at a normal rate. So her heart is fine.
Okay.
Your dog is healthy.
Oh,
You
good.
don't have anything to worry about. You have a beautiful mutt here.
Is there anything we need to know about the dog before we go?
Well, I think you have some interesting things to consider about this dog that you may not know quite yet, and that's going to be her behavioral characteristics. She is a terrier, so she's going to have a lively, very active personality, and she's not going to blend well into the background. She'll make her presence known wherever she is.
Just like Paco.
She's going to be a very agreeable companion and very eager to perform any task that you may assign to her. Around other dogs, though, because she is a terrier, she may not be too happy to have other dogs around her, so be careful with that. She may be a little bit aggressive. But around you two, the people that she prefers, she'll always show her very best characteristics.
Well, we have a dog at home named Franklin. And she gets along fine with Franklin, and we've had her for about a week.
Well, that's very interesting because what you're seeing is the combination in her personality of her beagle parent and her terrier parent. Just as you see the physical blending of those two parents, you see it in her behavior too. Because interestingly enough, the beagle was bred to not be very aggressive around other dogs because they ran in packs in order to chase the rabbits. So here again, you see the combination of the different mother and the different father from different breeds showing up in her personality.
So we have a healthy, lucky mutt.
You certainly do.
Okay, so I guess that's it for our examination.
That's it for this year.
Okay. We'll see you next year then.
Okay, thank you for coming in.
Come on, Lucky.
Goodbye,
Come on,
Lucky.
Lucky, you are lucky.
Yeah.
Healthy.
Miguel, where do you think Lucky's parents are?
They could be anywhere.
Yeah?
Yeah. Well, all we know is that one is a terrier and that one is a beagle.
Well, she's still pretty lucky.
Why?
Because she has us to take care of her.
Right. Come on, let's go.
The Bloodhound Gang will return tomorrow with another mystery.
321 Contact is a production of the Children's Television Workshop.
Levy, if we've had approximately 5% inflation operating each year, you add that up and it's just about right, 25%. A loss in your purchasing power. So yes, we're probably voting a 24% tax increase in 1 year to make up for the 5 years where that hasn't been operating in terms of a jump or an increase in percentages. And so then we start the new pattern of breathing a sigh of relief, and inflation continues to work, and pretty soon, after another few years, we have to vote again. So my common sense would say that's an accurate analysis, 24%.
Sure, it is. Here's a somewhat similar question. Somebody wrote, I don't know what my assessed valuation is, but I know my taxes this year were about $1,100. How much will the 8.1 mil increase cost me? Well, a couple points. The $1,100 would be their total tax bill for all purposes, not just schools. The total tax rate in the Grandview Heights School District, but for all purposes, that includes city, county, mental health, whatever else, I don't even know them all, whatever else there are. The total tax rate is, this year, is 47.17 mils. So if you just ratio that out, 8.1 over 47.17 times 1,100, and that comes out $188.89 to be precise. That would be approximately how much the tax bill on that property would go up because of the 8.1 mils. But again, I'll say, next tax year after that, it won't go up anymore, unless you make an improvement on your property, of course. But otherwise, it stays the same.
I got a chart that will show that. And I've got some extra copies if anybody wants. It goes from $100 to $1,000. Took what Bill just said and added up the $100 part and the $1,000 part, you get it $188 some cents. So it's an easier way to calculate it if you know at least what your tax bill was.
We probably are not through with this subject. However, we've got some questions here that involve getting you to be experts on legislature and reading the future. Well, first, with some I think you can answer quickly. Does the millage rollback apply to city levies? No. To voted city monies as well as school?
Yes, it does. Yes, it does.
Okay.
They have inside knowledge also does not.
So they're in the same boat to some extent. Okay. How significant are the funds received from the Ohio Lottery? Are increased amounts expected in the future?
I don't know, you tell us. You gonna spend more?
I just have to have that figure here.
By coincidence.
On this SF.
Microphone.
Pardon me.
Can't hear.
Can you hear me now? Okay. On the SF-12, which is for the upcoming school year, we're getting $864,000 in change. The grand total of $130,000 of that came from the lottery, which is right around 15%. It's a very small portion of our income, just a little over $1 million on our valuation. Look at that. Well, it's 15% of state money, but it's, well, no, that's the average. This is the,
One moment.
little consultation.
Well, all right, of our total money, about 3 or 4%.
Yeah.
Of the school funds.
Yeah, the total available general funds to the school system. It's a really small percentage.
There are several questions here reflecting, I think, several points of view on the homestead exemption. There's one that says that senior citizens who are concerned about the increase in their taxes, whether they can pay it out of their budget. Would you explain the homestead exemption and how does it help qualifying seniors? And then we have some other questions here on homestead exemption.
Well, I know just a little about it, and if we don't answer it right, as we promised, we'll get you the answers. There's a income qualifying level, I think it's in here, it's $16,500. If your income is below that, you qualify for some kind of tax reduction. As your income is less than that in a couple of steps, it can be as much as 75% of your tax bill. And then the state reimburses the schools for that. The schools don't lose that money, it's reimbursed by the state. Now, as far as how they calculate that and your income, that's, pretty personal, but get more of an answer, we'll try.
Okay. We've had a question about whether the legislature is repealing the rollback. I told you we'd be back. What would the taxes be if the rollback was repealed? Hope I'm getting this one right. And somebody said, please explain House Bill 920, and I think these may be on the same subject. Anybody want to discuss the legislature?
Roger alluded to House Bill 920 a little bit earlier, which was passed in 1976, and that just simply provides that when you vote on a tax issue for operation, what you're really voting for is an amount of money. That then, according to the provision of that law, is supposed to stay the same, and if the value of the property goes up, the tax rate is reduced, so that the amount of money stays the same. I don't try to keep track of the state legislature. I've been told that there is some consideration by members of the General Assembly to take a look at that provision of the law. Whether that means anything, I have no idea. I don't think anyone does at this point. Whether they will reconsider, change it or not, I don't know, because there are those who take the point of view that that's a good thing. That's as much as I know about it.
Yeah. You got a question? Do you want to clarify that?
That's a good question.
If House Bill 920 never existed, would that have solved our problems?
Perhaps. It would have helped immensely. The reason I say perhaps is, and I don't have the numbers with me tonight, but I took a look at whether the tax wealth of our school district over the last 20 years has kept pace with inflation, and it has not. One of the reasons is that we're in an area where there has not been development. We're pretty much fully developed in Grandview and Marble Cliff. And that if you just simply take the tax wealth of our school district and put it in current dollars, so you correct for inflation, we haven't quite kept up with inflation. So it would not perhaps have solved all of our problem, but it surely would have gone a long ways toward doing it, because we would have gotten automatic increases in revenue from our real estate taxes as property values went up, which we haven't gotten as a result of that legislation, other than that part which we get within the $5 million that we collect.
House Bill 920 was in response to the high inflation rates we experienced in the early 70s, particularly in real estate values. Not all our inflation was that high. Grandview at one point was the highest in the county, went up 50% in 3 years. And that was happening across the state, and school districts, folk were getting windfalls and whatever. And property tax, real estate owners and property taxpayers were complaining that, you know, every time the raised up, their taxes really went up a lot. Well, the legislature in its infinite wisdom said, okay, we're going to stop it, give you nothing. Well, after 10 years and 30 or 40 school districts going out of business and being collapsed into other school districts, and tax issues on the ballots every 2 or 3 years in a lot of districts, there's a cry from the schools, and I'm not saying just Grandview, but across the state, to repeal part of 920 to give us a little bit of growth in those real estate taxes without asking for more millage, which is what we have to do now.
Okay, we're gonna put one in here that, oh, I'm sorry, we've got a question here.
This goes along with what we've been discussing. I know there's not much room for development in Grandview. There is more major development going on now at Stonegate. Now, will that add to, it will add to the tax base, but what does it mean as far as what we're voting for? If we're voting for a certain amount of money, does that mean this will all go into erosion, and some taxes will go down because of development? In other words, I pay less because of that development.
My understanding of that is, if there is new property added to the tax base, that does not affect the rollback. So there would be a small gain in revenue from that. I don't have any idea what the value of that property would be, but whatever its assessed value times 8.1 would be the amount. It's probably pretty small compared to what we're talking about.
Don't let anybody move into after January 1st.
Well, we would get an increase on the whole value of it, since we're not getting anything down early, value of the vacant lots. But that's one of the places where Grandview has a problem compared to some growing districts like Dublin. They're building so many houses and adding so much to the tax rolls, we just don't have that. Sure, we'll get a few $1,000 from that, but it's not big bucks.
I'm sorry, there's a question back over here.
Point of information, I just happened to talk to the Dublin School District, and their new construction assessed valuation came in just recently of $70 million. So that's, no matter what Stonegate's worth, it's nothing near $70 million that Dublin Schools got in construction, which had to do that.
I don't want to live in Dublin.
And they have over 10 mills on the ballot this fall.
And they also have
9.8 operating and
We're going to stick in one that isn't numbers. This is strictly crystal ball gazing, but it's a legitimate question. What is the effect of the school system on property valuation? The person is concerned that the question needs to be addressed for the property owners in Grandview who do not have students in the schools. And for instance, will their property likely decrease or increase in value if the quality of the school declines? The potential decline in property value likely to be greater, or then would pay increased taxes? So please get out your crystal balls and tell us the answer.
I'll give you an opinion. That's about all I think any of us could do. Why do we live in Grandview? I can think of several pretty solid reasons. One is location. Very convenient place to live in terms of access to downtown, to the Ohio State University, to the freeway system, lots of other It's a very good location, that's one reason. Second reason is very good city services. If you look at our police, fire, streets, trash pickup, recreation, park, everything like that, we have very good quality city services in Grandview. And the third reason is good quality schools. I think all three of them operate. Now, if the quality of our school system goes down, will it have a deleterious effect on property value in the long term? Well, what keeps property value up is strictly market. If somebody wants that house that's on the market, and somebody else wants it, and somebody else wants it, price stays up. Why do they want it? Those three reasons, I think. Schools are one of them. It may be a very strong reason for a young family with children. So if the quality of the schools goes down, then does it make Grandview a little bit less desirable place to live? If it does, then will that over time affect the property value? My opinion is it probably will. I don't think it's going to happen in 1 year, but I think in time it would. That's one man's opinion.
That's an opinion I share. I think one comparison you might make is to the University View area, which is a little closer to the university than we are, but it's Clinton Township, Columbus schools. I don't think it would take too much investigation to show what the property values are there for comparable size houses and what they are in Grandview.
Okay, back to numbers. What's your estimate of the number of homes in Grandview? Or maybe you can do more than an estimate. Maybe you have the numbers. The number of homes that qualify for homestead exemption, old age, handicap. Anybody got a clue? Oh, okay. That goes in for looking up answers. Homework.
The problem with that question is that, you know, the age is one qualifier, but the income level is another. I'm not sure.
Are we going to be able to get any kind of numbers like that from the county? Okay, we'll get it next week, or next 2 weeks. Okay, we have another one here who has an interesting question, again on assessment. People bought their house, the previous owners were paying taxes on a market value of 35% of $70,000. They're paying taxes on a market value of $120,000. And understand 35% of that again. In the meantime, you know, the property hasn't been reappraised. Where's the additional tax money going? We're obviously paying more taxes on the same property than the previous owners. Are they helping keep the taxes down for those of us who haven't moved? This is, the property's changed hands, and they're now paying taxes on a higher market value than it was.
Well, everything was reappraised, and there were new assessed valuations on the 1988 tax bill, because the one the tax bills were paid this year. Everybody got reappraised. And
I didn't know we all got reappraised.
That's a pretty substantial increase. Before that, it's way over the average. But there's some houses that probably didn't go up at all.
Okay. We talked about the different funds, didn't we? Okay. Which one should we do? Oh, okay. Want to compare our tax rate to Arlington, Dublin, Worthington? Anybody want to do the comparison?
Let's do the next question.
Oh, okay. Okay. Well, we got several here along the same lines. The effective school millage compared to Columbus and Upper Arlington. See, I've been saving these. Here's one that you might want to ponder. Maybe you gentlemen who haven't had very many chances yet, while they're figuring that out. Because of decreased enrollment, how much longer can the city support the schools? On want to deal with that? Not the city physical area. Can this city support the school? I don't think they mean in taxes. City government. You want to do it?
Well, enrollment in the Grandview school system, I have the numbers here, has decreased from, I'll tell you the moment. 1969, our total was 1,865, kindergarten through grade 12. The school year that ended in June of this year was 1,225. My understanding is that enrollment this fall is the same, 1,225. Some of you may know that enrollment in the lower grades has been going up. Some people call that the baby boomlet or whatever, a ripple. The probability is because of that, and we also know that on a national level at least, the number of births in the United States in 1987 was the highest since 1964. It's because all those people that were the so-called baby boomers are now having children. Whether that applies to Grandview, I'm not sure, but the point is that enrollments in the lower grades have been going up the last several years. So that's going to work its way through the school system. So the probability is that our enrollments will go back up some in the future, rather than down. I think they've bottomed out because the low was in 1985 at 1,216. And it's gone up since then. Probability is it'll go up still some more.
The question was, how much longer can we afford to support our school?
How much longer can the city, by which I think they mean the community?
Right, yeah. And I think we always answer that each time we approach a levy. People are deciding that all the time, and it's like any question of value. I have a son who's in sports, and we go to the shoe store, and even when I talk him down from the brand that he wants, you know, tennis shoes are expensive these days, and you all know that. I think you probably do. And I can't believe some of the tennis shoes that are for sale, $60, $80, $100. That's one child that I'm buying, you know, a pair of tennis shoes for every so often, and he wears them out pretty fast. I think it's worth doing that for the benefits that sports provide for him, and so I support that. And I think we have to make the same kind of decision, each and every one of us, in terms of the school district. There's a joke I probably shouldn't tell. They're working on the numbers. I'm tired of these numbers. You know, no disrespect to anybody intended, but it's the joke about the two guys standing outside of the barber shop. And you know, the one says hi to the other, and they're exchanging small talk, and the one guy says to the other, I hear that the Arabs are trying to buy all of our land here in America. The other guy looks back at him and smiles, and he says, well, don't worry, the Japanese won't sell to them. You know, what's it worth to educate the next generation? You know, what's it worth to be in competition with countries that are putting resources into education? We have to answer that, each family and each individual, and it's a very personal kind of decision as to whether you want to spend $60 for tennis shoes, you know, for somebody in your family. But that's an important question to ask, and affordability is partly how we value things, as well as how much income we have. I don't think it's just simply a budgetary problem we've got. I think we have to decide what things are worth to us.
Our number crunchers are ready.
Sure. Well, I assume the question was directed toward the school millage as opposed to the community millage. And under that assumption, the highest in the county is Upper Arlington at 39.36 mils. Bexley is second at 37.2 mils. Worthington is third at 32.68 mils. Reynoldsburg is fourth at 31.46 mils. And Grandview is fifth out of the 16 districts in the county at 31.24 mils. And they go on down from there. Columbus is 28.27, just 3 mils less than Grandview. This information was gathered in the early part of the year, but at that point in time, 7 districts thought they'd have levies on the ballot sometime in '88, and 1 maybe. So that's half of it, just like the state have.
Oh, I'm sorry, we've got a question.
How much is 3 mils like on a $75,000 house?
Okay. No, if the house, you're talking about a $75,000 market value?
Market value, appraised value, assessed value, let's say 25,000.
All right, assessed value 25,000, it's 3 times 25. That's the easiest way to figure, 75 bucks.
That's what would be different from the city of Columbus millage versus the current
$3 per thousand.
Well, as a matter of fact, some numbers we put together say that the average house value in Grandview is 80,000 market. That's 28,000 assessed. 28 times 3. $84 per year.
Okay. We've got 3 things that have nothing to, I think, do with numbers directly. But since this was one of the 3 meetings where we're talking about the structure and organization of the Citizens Advisory Committee, there are 3 questions here asking about a minority report of the advisory committee. Would our structure folks like to answer that one?
Yeah, I'll respond to that. The subject of a minority report, to my recollection, Klein will correct me if I'm wrong, never came up. And I think what happened was, after we first met as a committee, it was clear that we were going to work as hard as possible to get a consensus. And what happened was, we got that consensus. And for that reason, I think it never came up. Yeah, Bill reminded me that this conversation, I think, recently was raised in the public, had to do with a report that one of the committee members brought, John Hemphill. I think John's gone now. And I'll explain, if I may, what happened with respect to that. John came to the meeting one night, and there had been some discussion about a particular point. And John, at the prior meeting, so John came to the meeting, and he had written out his arguments as to why he was in favor of a certain position. And I think that went over a number of pages. His conclusion then was at the bottom of this summary of arguments. And that was addressed by the committee, and after much discussion, it was adopted. There was a question raised as to whether the other pages of that argument, that written document, would also be included in the report, and it was the consensus of the committee at that time that they were not going to discuss it because it was the conclusion that they were after. And so there was no further consideration of John's position paper, and he made it very clear, and I don't mean to speak for him, but he made it very clear he wasn't interested in that being a part of the committee report. It was his conclusion that he was after, and in fact that was included and is a part of our report. But as far as a minority report, no one ever raised that. That was never brought up at any of the 4 meetings that we had. So there wasn't, yeah. So there wasn't a minority report.
We've we've got several questions here on money again, folks. Isn't that amazing on a meeting on finances? So these all these choices. Let's address this one. In recent years, many schools have experienced problems with financing schools with real estate taxes. We want to talk about how Grandview compares with other schools. Are there any answers to these problems? These are not easy to answer.
Well, I'll take a crack at that one. There are some choices that can be made. There are no easy answers. Among the choices are some of the things that we're facing now, particularly voting to support the schools by increasing the taxes that we pay. Another choice that we have taken through the school board to some degree is to cut programs or to impose fees on sports programs or higher fees for art and science labs. Another choice along that same line on a little larger scale is to accept a reduction in a long-term permanent reduction in the level of the schools and the programs that we're going to offer. Another choice is to accept the fact or to agree that we don't want to continue to pay increased taxes to maintain a small, independent neighborhood school system and merge with another larger school system. Another choice, and one that our committee recommended be done, which is less concrete, is to do things like join with other school districts in the state to follow up on things we talked about earlier, lobby the General Assembly to change the erosion formula, to find other state sources to provide funds for schools. That's taxation in another form, but maybe less immediate and personal than voting a property tax on our own. I think as a number of people have said here tonight, it really comes down to a value decision. What is important to us and what do we feel is important to our kids and our community in the form of the education system.
Just answer two more questions in the process, we're going to run out of things to talk about and have to go home. One question that's been raised is, in sort of different ways, is when is Grandview School's financial problems begun in the last 5 years, 10 years? Is there any time period we can see when this started or why? Can we compare budgets back 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, and see any place where the problem started? Or okay.
Yeah, my opinion is, Roger and Tom can speak for themselves on it, but I think they started in 1976. We had a double whammy. We felt the effects of the loss of the golden finger, as it's called, and we had House Bill 920 passed. And they both hit us right between the eyes. When that golden finger was taken away, that took away 1/4 of the tax wealth of our school district. 1/4. Back in 1975, and we felt the effects in 76. We had a tax levy on the ballot right away, because we had to increase our taxes about 1/3 in order to make that up, and we did. Those of you who lived here can remember that. And we'd have been okay, but then we got House Bill 920 at the same time. And we've had tax levies on every 3 to 5 years ever since.
And we're no different from any other school district. And as long as that bill is there, as long as inflation continues, you're going to see the same thing again. The two things work together.
That leads right into another one I got, and I think this, we old timers, you see, remember this fight. We forget we have to re-explain it to you young folks. How did we lose the golden finger? Who made the decision? Why did it happen? And the second one is, are we planning to fight to regain it? Bloody but unbowed.
I can answer the last part first. There's no way we can get that back. This is before I was on the school board, but I've heard the history. Sometime in the very late 60s, Mifflin School District was in financial troubles. It was a local school district bordered by Columbus. And it is in the financial trouble that we could be in a couple of years, just not being able to operate with the tax monies that are there. Columbus, the State Board of Education is the one that ultimately said that Columbus would take the golden finger back. But Columbus would not take Mifflin without the golden finger. We had 12 students, give or take a couple from that 25% of our tax base. And it was thought that the school board spent about $50,000 over 5 to 6 years to fight losing it. In the meantime, collected about $3 million in taxes. But it was an ultimate loss that went to the Supreme Court because we were overruled by the big district.
The decision was made by the State Board of Education.
State Board of Education made the decision ultimately.
Okay, I got a very specific one here. Referring to a letter to the editor in the Tri-Village that the school budget deficit has been overestimated. Is this true? By approximately $600,000? I know you want to...
Let me respond
Yeah.
to that. And that the letter that they're referring to was from Ollie Hort, who was a member of the Financial Advisory Committee. And I have to say, I have not had a chance to talk to Ollie about that, but I'm convinced that some of the conclusions, some of the things that he said about what the advisory committee found and what he's talking about is the deficit that the finance committee, the citizens advisory committee projected, the deficit that was reflected on the budget before the school board on August the 8th when the 8.1 mil levy was authorized. The two deficits, just the raw number comparison, the 3.2 million that the finance committee found, the 2.6 million that the budget in front of the board shows equates to $600,000. I don't know if that is the number that he referred to in his letter or not. I do know that the budget underlying the 8.1 mil levy, as we talked about before, and I think is indicated in the financial, in the newsletter, the reason for the difference is a combination of one, more than $700,000 in cuts over the 3-year period. Again, some minor changes in the funds available from the various components. I don't, in my mind, the conclusion that the advisory committee overestimated the deficit by $600,000 is not correct. In fairness to Ollie, since he's not here, I don't know specifically what he had in mind, and one of the things that I personally tend to do, because Ollie and I think, had a pretty good relationship both during the advisory committee report and since then, is to contact him and try and resolve the discrepancy. If you want to follow up on that, then we'll get that question.
Well, the one thing the finance subcommittee decided to do was to look at the numbers as they existed and not try to project budget things stay the same, and the increasing cost of teachers and benefits and everything else. And then when you put those numbers together and present to the school board, said we've got to cut some of that out. That's where the cuts were.
I thought I was referring to the fact that the school board had two different budgets sitting on the table office. One was the actual budget that we used for the taxing, and the other was the budget that we were using if the money passes. I think that was what I was
Okay.
referring to.
Okay. There are a couple of issues. Yeah, well, first of all, did everybody hear the question?
No.
All right, the question was, or the comment was made that perhaps what Ollie Horde was referring to was what have been called two budgets that were presented to the school board. One budget to create, to underlie the levy, and another budget that would reinstate cuts if the levy passed. There are two things involved in this. First of all, the proposed budget does reflect the reinstatement of some cuts if the levy is passed. It also reflects permanent cuts that don't come back if the levy is passed. And those cuts primarily are the elimination of, it's 8.8 full-time equivalent positions. Some teachers, some tutors, some aides. There was another budget that was discussed at that meeting that relates to a slightly different piece of the puzzle, and that is a budget that would have to be submitted to the state auditor? The county auditor, in order to get a certification from the county auditor that the board could then take to participate in the state school loan fund. The numbers in that budget reflect slightly different numbers because of some of the technical requirements relating to what the county auditor will certify as available funds. So really, I think what Ollie is referred to is kind of a combination of the two things. The budget that shows 2.6 million in total 3-year deficits, and that underlies the 8.1 million, does assume that some cuts in supplies, books, paper, some other services, could be reinstated. It is certainly not the case that if the levy passes, everything goes back to the way it was before any cuts were implemented, and we go back to business as usual. That's not going to happen if this levy passes. There are permanent reductions and permanent changes that are now existing in our school system and will continue to exist for that 3-year period. The second budget, which has been discussed, is not a reinstatement of all the cuts. It's a restatement of finances for a slightly different purpose, that if we need to go to and apply for a state fund, we need to have a slightly different configuration of the funds.
Could I add one word to that? I'm not sure people might understand what you're referring to on that, Tom, that I believe, if I'm incorrect, stop me, I believe it's state law that says you have to, as a school district, operate with a balanced budget. So even though a levy might be defeated and you do not have enough operating income to cover your expenses, that does not relieve you from the burden of balancing your budget. And so that's the purpose of the state loan fund. You can end up, you have to provide public education, so you still have to find a way to make all this work, and so you end up borrowing the money while you figure out what to do in other areas to solve your problems for the long term. And so it's a short-term solution in order to keep the schools going, that necessitates the use of that state loan fund.
And you have to pay it back.
And that's right, it's borrowed money, it's not, they don't give it to you.
And if anybody still has questions about that, please speak up, because this is an important issue, and it's one that is real easy to lose track on, and it's something that, Ollie certainly has raised, and I know other people have the same question. So, if I haven't answered the question, let us know, and if you want more specific information, if you want to see facts and figures, God forbid, anybody else that wants to get into it in that depth of detail, we will certainly provide that. We're not trying to sidestep this at all. Yes?
Yes.
Question on what you said. I think I heard you say two budgets were presented to the school board. Doesn't the school board develop their own budget instead of having somebody submit it to them?
Well, the budget was developed by the administration and then presented to the board. That's standard practice, Vic. Board members themselves don't develop the budget. It's done by the administration, presented to the board for its consideration.
Now the school board certainly is the policy-making body that decides where cuts are going to be made and what, it is certainly not what some people allege to be four puppets and one maverick being manipulated or fighting with the superintendent and the treasurer. If you get going on that one, you're going to find out why they don't pay lawyers by the word anymore. But, for example, there was a long discussion by the school board members about where cuts could be accepted and where certain programs were so important that even though that we're facing a major and serious financial crisis, for example, the CORE program, which includes the drug and substance abuse counseling and training for the students, was one of the things that could have been cut to save, $4,000 or $5,000 more in operating expenses, and that was put back in because of the significance and the importance and value of that program. From my perceptions as an observer at the board meetings, I think I can say that the discussions and deliberations on what was going to be cut and how deep were by no means taken in a light manner. There was some real hard, serious questioning. But as Bill and Klein said, we can't operate at a deficit, and it's got to take a combination of cuts and more money. And it's,
You may think you've covered everything. I've got a bunch of questions here that we're not going to get to because this is not a single special, folks. This is a series. And we've got some wonderful questions. I have some questions here that I think reveal some of the most creative thinking about Grandview and its schools that I've seen in 25 years. I love it. There are a lot of questions left here that I kept out particularly because there are several dealing with salaries and personnel and benefits, which is the subject for the next meeting on October 6th, which is at St. Chris.
Church.
Right. And so I pulled those out so that we will have panel members who specifically looked into that, who can address those questions, I think, more thoroughly than, our wonderful number crunchers can do tonight. Then there's also several here dealing with, well, there are a lot of questions that obviously are really suggestions, and I love some of them, on possible cuts. What happens if the levy doesn't fail? What are some creative solutions? what could we try to get the legislature to do? What could we do as a community? And that is really what we're talking about on October 20th. So you see, you've got to come back and do all three. There are also some that we didn't get to because we're going to get out of here at 9:30, folks, because I haven't had a cigarette in 2 hours and I'm ready. But there's some good questions that I'd like to get into. I tell you what, the ones that we didn't get answered tonight, will go into the literature that will be distributed next week.
I'll have to go on the third run, the second one's already.
Oh, sorry, the third run, but we'll try and get quick answers for the ones for the meeting, so we'll have them on hand for you, so that you don't have to wait a whole month to find out. But there's one here, if I may. Is it my prerogative to pick? Because I think it's wonderful. I think actually, in real fairness, this needs to probably be addressed more under one of the later sessions, but I just like the question. Did the subcommittee on finance investigate the financial operations and aspects of the school district to the extent it can assure the voters there are no $10 tennis shoes being sold to us for $60? Is this, or is this not the Defense Department?
Yes.
Yes, it is the Defense Department?
No. Yes to your question.
You did. You did really look into this.
Yes.
That we're getting value for money and not being.
You heard what Klein said in his opening remarks, that the management is sound. And that was our conclusion.
I have never seen a meeting where so much of the audience made it to the end as this. If anybody ever wondered about whether